For the trunk, we will begin with our yellow yarn, and we will be continuing to use the 4.5 millimeter hook. For round 1, we'll start with a magic circle, and we will do 6 single crochet into that magic circle. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Once you have your 6 single crochet, grab that tail, give it a pull, and that will close up the circle. And once you're done with this round, you should have a total of 6 stitches. For round 2, you're going to do 2 single crochet into each stitch. So each stitch gets 1 increase. And you'll just keep going all the way around. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 12 stitches. For round 3, your repeating sequence will be 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And so you'll just continue that all the way around, 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And once you have finished this round, you should have a total of 18 stitches. For round 4, we're going to be working in the back loops only. So instead of coming through the front and going under both of those loops for the stitch, you're going to come in here and only go through that back loop. And you're just going to do 1 single crochet in each back loop all the way around. So skip that front loop and only go in that back loop. And then once you're done with this round, you should still have 18 stitches. Before beginning the next round, it's a good time to go ahead and weave in that beginning tail and snip off the excess. And then you're ready to begin rounds 5 through 20. So for rounds 5 through 20, you're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around. And once you have finished with round 20, you should still have a total of 18 stitches. Before beginning round 21, you want to start stuffing your trunk, and you want it filled so it's firm enough to hold it its shape, but not so stuffed that it's going to stretch out your stitches. And so for round 21, your repeating sequence is going to be 2 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And so you'll just repeat that all the way around, 2 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 24 stitches. For round 22, your repeating sequence will be 3 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And then you'll just repeat that all the way around. So there's 3 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 30 stitches. For round 23, your repeating sequence will be 4 single crochet. So there's 2, 3, and 4, followed by 1 increase. And then you'll repeat that all the way around. 4 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, and 1 increase. And once you have finished the end of this round, you should have a total of 36 stitches. Once you've reached the end of round 23, you'll remove that stitch marker, and then we're just going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches to finish off. And then when you cut your yarn, make sure you're leaving a long enough tail to sew the trunk onto the body. And go ahead and finish stuffing. So you'll add some more stuffing into here. And that is the first part of the trunk. And now we will do the white part that goes on the bottom of the trunk. For the white part that goes on the bottom of the trunk, we're going to switch to our white yarn and continue using the 4.5 millimeter hook. For round 1, we'll start with a magic circle, and you will do 6 single crochet into that magic circle. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now you'll grab that tail, give it a pull to close up the circle, and at the end of this round you should have 6 stitches. 2, you're going to do 2 single crochet in each of the stitches. So each stitch gets 1 increase. So there's 1 and 2. And so you'll continue that all the way around. 1 increase in each one of these stitches. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 12 stitches. For round 3, we're going to do a repeating sequence of 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And then we'll repeat that all the way around. 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And once you've reached the end of this round, you should have a total of 18 stitches. Now that we have finished round 3 of the white part, we're going to attach it to the bottom of the trunk. And so you're going to go through the next stitch here, just like that. And then you're going to come here to these front loops that we did not use. And you're going to go under the front loop, just like that. And then do a slip stitch to connect. And you'll continue that all the way around. So move to the next stitch, find the next loop on the trunk, and do a slip stitch. And you'll continue that all the way around until you get back to where you started. Once you've gotten back to where you started from, we're just going to finish by doing one last slip stitch and tie off. And then you'll take your yarn needle and weave in that end. So just take your yarn needle and just run it through the trunk. And there we go. And then we'll snip off the excess. Add some more stuffing and attach it to the head. Now that the trunk is finished, and you're going to finish stuffing it, and you want to kind of squish it down so it has a little bit of a curve to it. So when you put it on, that curve will point the trunk up a little bit, just like that. And we're going to thread the yarn needle and start stitching it onto the face. So we want the curve, so the curve goes up, and you're going to place it just below the eyes, centered between the two eyes. And so we're going to start by going under a stitch in the head, and then come up through a stitch in the nose. And pull that nice and tight. And then you'll go under the next stitch in the head and up through a stitch in the nose. Just like that. And you'll continue to do that all the way around, making sure that you're keeping it centered between the eyes. So you'll just keep going under a stitch in the head and through a stitch in the nose. And try to keep it where this base has its round shape. And just continue to do that all the way until you've gotten back to where you started. And once you've gotten back to where you've started, you're just going to go under one of those stitches so you can tie off. And then we'll take that yarn needle and poke it through the head a couple of times just to secure our thread. And that way the tail is hidden inside, and you'll snip it off. And our elephant is starting to look like an elephant. Now he has his trunk, and next we need to give him a happy little mouth. For the mouth of our elephant, we will be using the main color, which in this case is my yellow, and we will continue to use the 4.5mm hook. For round 1, we're going to make a magic circle and do 6 single crochet into that circle. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we're going to take that tail and pull it closed. And we will not be going in a circle. So at this point, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. For round 2, so we've already done our chain 1, turn the work, and we're going to do 2 single crochet into each stitch. So each stitch will be getting 1 increase. And we're going to do this all the way across. And once you've come to the end of this round, you should have a total of 12 stitches. Just like that. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn. For round 3, we're going to do a repeating sequence of 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And you'll continue that all the way across. So 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, 1 increase, and once you've reached the end of this round, you should have a total of 18 stitches. There's 1, and finishing off with our increase. And at this point, we're going to tie off and leave a long enough tail for sewing it onto the head. And you'll go ahead and that beginning tail, pull that nice and tight, and then weave this one in. Just go ahead and run that through a couple of the stitches. And then snip off the excess. And then this tail we'll use for attaching it to the head. To add the mouth, we're going to just line it up right under that trunk. Just like that. Make sure you're centered under the trunk. And then you're going to take your yarn needle and go under a stitch in the trunk and through a stitch in the mouth. And so under a stitch in the trunk and through a stitch in the mouth. And you'll just keep doing that all the way around the bottom half of the mouth. So keeping it lined up, we'll go under a stitch and through a stitch in the mouth. And we're only doing it on the bottom half of the mouth. That way the top half can be partly open. And you want to make sure it has a little bit of a curve to it. And under a stitch and through a stitch. And then we'll get back over here to this side and go under the stitch in the trunk and through one last stitch in the mouth. Make sure you've got it situated the way you want before tying it off. And you'll just go under a stitch so you can tie off. And then take your yarn needle and just poke it through. Do that a couple of times just to secure it. We'll just go through the trunk here. And then you'll snip off the excess. And there we go. He's got his little mouth. And now we are ready for the tail. For the tail of our elephant, I've taken 6 strips of yarn and I've made them about twice the length of my crochet hook. So I took the length of the crochet hook and did 2 times the length of the crochet hook. So once you have your 6 pieces of yarn, you're going to flip the elephant over. And then we're going to figure out the tail will go right about here. And so we will take these strips, take our hook and go under a couple of the stitches, trying to stay centered, and then just pull those strips through. Just like this. And you're just going through those same stitches each time to pull them through. There we go. And then we want to make sure we've got them all even. We'll just line up the one side and hold that side while we take the other side and make sure we've got those all nice and even. Okay, pretty good. Now you'll take your, now that it's through here, you end up with 12. And so you're going to take groups of 4. So 4 there, 4 here, and 4 here. And you're just going to do a simple braid. So taking each group over, and we'll just do a very simple braid. And then once you come close to the end of your strips, we're going to take all of them together and tie a knot. Make sure you get all of those strips through the knot. Just like that. And give that a pull nice and tight to secure it. And then you can take your scissors and then just give that just a little bit of a trim to make them all even. Just like that. And there we go. He has his tail. And our elephant is done and ready to play with.